Hello and welcome to today's office hours presentation. This is Paul Hoyt, your host. Our office hours presentations are a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recording slides and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and all the recordings are available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do this is because we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know from firsthand experience that it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team to be successful, and we want you to get to know us because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we really do care about you. We want you to be successful in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and remember it and embrace it every single day as we try to do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these office hours presentations beneficial to you, we really encourage you to pass the word along to your friends, to your neighbors, to your colleagues who are also small business owners, CEOs, or entrepreneurs, or who want to be, because there is a wealth of incredible information available on our website. With our office hours presentations, we usually have an in-depth discussion of a small business success principle. Then we offer some closing remarks, special offers, and invitation for next week's session. And then we go into open Q&A and coaching. So as we're going through the presentation today, if you find something of curiosity to you, something that you want to ask a follow-up question on, you can either just make a note of that and raise your hand at the end of the presentation. We'll call on you. Or you can type it into the GoToWebinar control blog as we go. Joining me on the call today is Stephanie May, who's been my assistant for nearly 2 years now. And she'll be conversing back and forth with you during the presentation while I'm focusing on delivering the presentation. We also invite you to join us in the Awakened CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where I publish a business success principle of the day 4 days a week on both Facebook and LinkedIn. And then every morning when I get up, I post an energy of the day posting on Facebook, which is part of my personal spiritual discipline to say something insightful and meaningful to folks out there. Today was day 879 in a row that I've been practicing that as part of my morning discipline. Today's conversation with office hours is going to be on structured conversations because communications are so darned important in business and in other areas of our life. We always relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of business that I defined in my 2004 book called The Foundation Factor. And this is all about leadership. It's about your responsibility in your business to communicate the way that you need to communicate, and if necessary and if beneficial, and I think it can be beneficial, is to establish ways of having structured conversations so that you can ensure that everything that needs to be said gets to be said, and everybody that needs to be heard is in fact heard, and you elicit the expressions, the ideas of everybody that's at your business. We also relate the subject matter of the day to the levels of performance we defined in the Awakened CEO system, the mindset, methods, and momentum levels of performance. Mindset is all about your beliefs and your perspectives. Methods is about your plans, processes, and procedures, and momentum is about taking action and then accelerating your velocity over time through repeated action. And today's conversation is about all three of those. We're going to talk about the mindset of communications, give you lots and lots of different ways to have structured conversations, so that's the methods, and encourage you to get into momentum, to practice having structured conversations so that you're able to be heard and that other people are able to be heard at your business too. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about why have structured conversations in the first place. We'll give several different examples of formal facilitated conversations. Then we'll talk about personal conversations, and finally sales conversations. Then we'll sum all up to the bottom line and then go into our open Q&A period at the end of it. So let's start with, why have a structured conversations in the first place? I mean, why do we even focus on this topic? And the answer is because communication is extremely important. You know, ideas that are left unsaid and unexpressed are really worthless. They're not much more than entertainment. You really need to be able to find ways to encourage all of the ideas from people at your business, and you need to find a way to really help with relationship skills. So in this art and science of emotional intelligence, we focus on 4 different things: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And when it comes to relationship management, to make sure that people feel like they're safe in your organization, that they're respected, that they're trusted, it oftentimes requires a structured conversation. Now, sometimes you don't need those if there is no issue and people really do feel like they're being heard, but sometimes there is, or there could be, an emotional charge with a conversation. And I know in my own life that whenever I felt a little bit defensive, whenever I felt some hesitation, some resistance to bringing up the subject with a member of my family or with somebody that I worked with or wanted to work with, I find that having a structured conversation, having a practiced step-by-step way to introduce that subject, to invite another person to have that conversation with me, was the tool that I needed in order to have that essential critical conversation whenever I had an emotional charge. I also find that when I know that somebody else has an emotional charge, or I suspect that they might have an emotional charge, having a structured way to have that conversation to minimize the impact of that emotional charge is really, really important. We know that everybody wants and really needs to be heard fairly. People want to be treated fairly because being treated fairly helps them be safe. And when people are safe, they feel like they're more creative. They can really ramp up the energy. When people are under a lot of stress and they don't feel like they're being heard and they don't feel like they're being treated fairly, they have a tendency to go into their shell, and they have a tendency not to work as hard. It's like driving with your brakes on whenever you're experiencing a lot of stress. And as much as possible, you want people to have just a comfortable amount of stress, an encouraging, exciting amount of stress, not the debilitating, stop you in your tracks kind of success in your business. Structured conversations are also very important when one or more parties tend to dominate the conversation. We'll talk about that a lot with facilitated conversations here in a minute. But if you find that you are a person who dominates a conversation, or you need to have a conversation with somebody who just likes to talk and talk and talk, having an agreed upon way to have those conversations can really facilitate communication and facilitate goodwill and good relationships. And structured conversations are really important when you really want to reach an agreement with somebody, because agreements, really good agreements, really quite require that both parties be heard, that there's some cooperation, collaboration in the process of discussing what needs to be discussed and formalizing an agreement. So those are the great reasons to have a structured conversation. Recognize that communication is essential. Recognize that some communications have an emotional charge to them, and some people like to dominate conversations. So in order for everybody to be heard fairly, in order for you to reach an agreement as to what's next, it can be extremely beneficial to have a structured conversation. One of the types of structured conversations I want to talk about just briefly are formal facilitated conversations, and we're going to talk about several different types of those. We'll talk about facilitated planning sessions, debates, legal proceedings, mediations, and conflict resolution. First, let's talk about facilitated planning sessions. For those of you who know me, you know that one of the things that we do is strategic planning. We work with companies, rooms full of people who really need to be heard, who have great ideas and great experience, and facilitate the discussion amongst them so that the company can come to some agreement on what their strategic growth plans are going to be. And those facilitated planning sessions can take place over a matter of days, and they have a lot of different steps. Here's some of the steps that I like to use in my facilitated planning sessions. We talk about values and vision to make sure everybody's on the same page and we have emotional bonding. We talk about long-term and mid-term goals, the history of the company and significant achievements that they have had so far, the current products and services, the current markets and industries, trends and opportunities that they see in those markets and industries, and then we talk about a product development roadmap, talking about what new products, what new services you're going to introduce over time. In the next part of the facilitated planning sessions, we talk about your position in the marketplace, your market expansion opportunities. We go through a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Really get honest and get real about what's working and what's not so that we can develop high-level growth strategies and understand what the critical competencies are and the success factors are for your company to use those, to achieve those growth strategies that we have in mind. And then we finish with a phased growth strategy, which takes the midterm, the next 18 to 24 months and breaks it into 3 or more phases of growth, ending up with a 90-day growth plan. And sometimes we go into budgets, which is optional and a separate process. That's a lot of different steps. And I typically take 2 to 3 days in order to go through all of those steps in the process, depending upon how many people are participating in the process. That being said, we also recognize that this kind of process is not right for every company. That smaller companies with smaller budgets and fewer people on the team may do just as well from a 2 or 3 hour or a 1-day facilitated planning session that we love to do as well. But that's an example of a formal facilitated conversation. It is a structured conversation. So step by step, we'll talk about this, then we'll talk about that, then we'll talk about the next thing, and we go through a process to make sure that everybody is heard and to make sure that everything that needs to be discussed is fairly discussed. Another format for a facilitated conversation are debates. I don't know if any of you took debate when you were in high school or college, but it is a wonderful way of getting people out of their shell and to think about the process of having discussions. And in the case of debates, they are debates. They're not disagreements and arguments, but they're very controlled conversations about different issues. With debates, and we're going to specifically talk about the Lincoln-Douglas debate format that's used in high schools and colleges, not necessarily the political debates that we see today, but you'll recognize that they have a structured format as well. In Lincoln-Douglas debates, the parties take either the affirmative side or the negative side, and in fact, they have to take both sides at different sides during the debate so they get an opportunity to argue for the affirmative and argue for the negative. In the first part of the debate, you present the affirmative case for 6 minutes. Then you have negative cross-examination of the affirmative case for 3 minutes. And then you have a presentation of the negative case and a rebuttal of the affirmative arguments for 7 minutes. Then an affirmative cross-examination for 3 minutes and followed by the first affirmative rebuttal for 4 minutes. Then the second negative rebuttal for 6 minutes, and you conclude the debate with the second affirmative rebuttal for 3 minutes. Now, it's really interesting to go to a high school debate and watch these different young men and women use this format to express very clearly what's on their mind. I think that this is incredibly good training. In fact, I think that every student should either be in theater or they should take speech class or they should take debate class, because it really does teach you to get out of your shell and teaches you how to express yourself very, very clearly and make the points that you need to make. That's another form of structured, facilitated conversation. They're facilitated because you do have a moderator and a timekeeper at each one of these who invites the next step in the process. And of course, in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, you have judges who reward people points and prizes for having presented their side of the case much more effectively than the other person. Mediations are a formal legal process where there is an agreement to mediate, you select the mediator, you have an exchange of information with the mediator, and you make a presentation to the mediator, and in the process of going back and forth, there are negotiations and settlement. Typically, the mediator will meet with one party and invite them to suggest what needs to be said to the other party, and they will take that message to the other party and deliver the message from party 1 to party 2, and then take the messages back from party 2 to party 1, and even suggest at some point in time ways in which the parties can reach a mediation, which is a formal kind of settlement without the jurisdiction of the courtroom, so that you can reach some sort of a settlement without having the expense of either arbitration or a formal lawsuit. One thing to really be clear on in a mediation process is the confidentiality. With the confidentiality, the mediator, in a sense, has privileged conversations with both parties, and is not allowed to say anything to one party that is not specifically authorized for them to say, by the other party, and it has to keep in confidence everything that's told to them during the mediation process. For more information, I invite you to go to look up the Institute for Conflict Prevention and Resolution, which is where I got these guidelines on this step-by-step mediation process. If the mediation is not successful and arbitration isn't successful, you may find yourself going to a trial. And we've all watched enough TV to know that those trial proceedings are very formal. And here is the multi-step process. I think it's a 6-step process for a trial proceeding. First, there's jury selection. Then we offer opening statements. Then the plaintiff and then the prosecutor, depending on whether it's a criminal trial or a civil trial, make a presentation of evidence and their witnesses. Then the defendant makes their presentation of evidence and the witnesses. All the time there's cross-examination during each one of these 2 phases. Then each party, first the prosecutor or the plaintiff, makes the closing arguments, and the defendant makes the closing arguments. And then the judge gives the instructions to the jury, and they may deliberate, and then they come back and make the verdict. This is a very formal type of facilitated conversation between 2 parties. And in this particular case, by the way, you've given the judges and the jury the authority to actually decide who the winner is and what the verdict is. In conflict resolution, there is a similar process where we have a discussion of the attitude of resolution. We tell our stories. We listen for a preliminary vision of resolution. We get current and complete to make sure that everything has been said that needs to be said. When we reach an agreement in principle, typically with the encouragement and the support of the conflict resolution expert, we craft a new agreement, and then we reach resolution. This process came to us from a book called Getting to Resolution by a great friend of mine, Stuart Levine. If you would like to learn a lot more about conflict resolution, I encourage you to pick up that book. He's a great guy, and that's a great book, and I certainly encourage you to use that. So those are the 5 different types of formal facilitated conversations that I wanted to share with you, because that is a type of structured conversation that uses a facilitator. So we can have facilitated planning discussions, facilitated debates, facilitated legal proceedings, mediations, and conflict resolution opportunities. But there are a lot of other types of structured conversations that don't use the context and the assistance of a formal facilitator, and we're going to talk about those now. We're going to talk about the couples dialogue for personal conversations, the UCR-UCD method, the TCD method, compassionate communications, the compliment sandwich, and the awakened CEO communications process. First, we'll talk about the couples dialogue. This was introduced to me early in my relationship with my lovely bride, Sherry. We've been married 41 years now, or we'll be 41 years in a couple of months. And one of the keys, one of the things that really helps us with our success is understanding how to talk to each other. The couples dialogue is a 4-step process. And the first step is we invite somebody to engage in a couples dialogue by asking their permission to engage in a couples dialogue with them. Then we mirror, we invite somebody to state their side of the issue, and we mirror that back to them. Then we offer some validating comments about that, comments about understanding, and then some comments about empathy, and then which naturally follows usually is some sort of an agreement or a resolution thereafter. By the way, this is also called the Imago dialogue, and it was originally created by Harville Hendricks, who was a marriage and family therapist, I believe. Also may have been a PhD in clinical psychology too. But there is a way, even for you to have with your significant other, with your family members, to have this type of step-by-step process to talk about the things that you really need to talk about. It does take training and it does take practice in order to do it. But once you go through this, if you find that you're having a hard time talking about things, that when you talk about sensitive issues, that they start to degenerate into arguments and yelling matches and screaming matches, this is a wonderful, wonderful way for you to have a step-by-step process, to have the conversations that you really need to have to nurture the relationship and help the relationship thrive and grow over time. And I encourage you to take a look at that if you think in your life, this would be very important. Again, it's called the couples dialogue or the imago dialogue. Something that I invented just a couple of 3 years ago in my stint as a business consultant was the UCR-UCD method, and I invented it quite by accident. When I found myself, uncomfortable with a situation, and I was really concerned about, the way this conversation was going or the way the relationship was going, and I wanted to make a request of another party, I quite accidentally invented the UCR-UCD method. And it stands for, the U stands for uncomfortable, the C stands for concerned, and the R stands for request, and the D stands for a decision. So you can end this pattern of structured conversation with either a request from the other party or just telling the other party what you're going to do. And here's an example of it. If you find that somebody is not coming, you just don't have the working relationship with somebody that you really want. You can say, I'm uncomfortable with our current working relationship. I'm really concerned that we're not in balance, and I don't feel very good about that. So I want to request that we renegotiate our business agreement. It makes it really easy for you to invite the other person to have the discussion that you want to have. You can, if somebody's coming in late, you can say, hey, John, I'm really uncomfortable with the way that you just haven't been showing up on time. And I'm concerned about the message that it's sending to the rest of our team. And frankly, I'm concerned if I let you get away with this, that the other team members are going to feel free to come in late too, and then we're going to lose a tremendous amount of productivity. So, this is my decision. You can't come in late anymore. If you do, I'm going to take that as a sign that you really did want to resign, and we're going to have to let you go. A great way of having that tough conversation with somebody is the UCR-UCD method. If somebody makes an offer to you that you want to decline, I find that the TCD method works extremely well, where you thank the person for the kind offer, you offer them a compliment, and then you decline. And then I like to add to the end of it some sort of a best wishes too. And here's an example of how you might use that. Thank you for your kind offer to come over and discuss your business opportunity. You certainly have put a lot of effort into this, and I know that you've made a lot of progress, but it's just not going to work for me right now, so I'm going to decline. I really do wish you well. I wish you the very best of luck, and thanks again for the opportunity. So when you couple the thank yous with it, and when you couple the thank yous with it, the compliments with it, when you couple the best wishes with it, I find that it's pretty darn easy to turn somebody down. And frankly, I get the opportunity to turn somebody down, 2 or 3 times a week. A lot of people who are starting their businesses don't have the money that they really need to engage my services or anybody else's services, for even for a few $100, and I turn those people down because that doesn't support my business model. And I thank them. Thank you for the opportunity to work with you on a sweat equity or a deferred compensation basis. However, and I really appreciate the effort that you put into this. And again, thank you for the offer, but that's not going to work for me right now. I'm focusing on cash generating activities. I hope you'll understand, and I wish you well. Please come back when you have the opportunity to engage our services. And that works very well for me. Another form of structured personal conversation is compassionate communications. And compassionate communications is a 4-step process where we talk about the facts, then we talk about the feelings, then we talk about the needs, and then we make a request. This is from Marshall Rosenberg, and this is also called, by the way, nonviolent communications. Marshall Rosenberg, and I invite you to look them up because this is a stellar process. And on YouTube, you're going to find a 10-minute video, a 15-minute video, and last time I looked, there was even a 3-hour workshop on nonviolent communications, on compassionate communications, that you can go through to really learn the ins and outs of this so that you can use it most effectively in your business and in your personal life. It is a fantastic way of having a structured conversation. Marshall Rosenberg invented this step-by-step process when he was acting as a mediator in between actual warring tribes in Africa. I mean, these people were like, picking up spears and bows and arrows and guns and machetes and getting after each other in a very, very violent way. And they were communicating with violence as opposed to communicating with nonviolence. And he invented this process of saying, here's what the facts are, here's how that made me feel when you did this god-awful thing, and here's what I really need. I need to feel safe, I need to feel protected, I need to feel like I'm respected in this environment, and so this is my request. and I invite you to take a look at this. I've had multiple clients over the last 3 months go and take a look at some of these YouTube training videos, and they say that it's really, really helped them in their communications, in their business, and in their personal life. Another form of structured conversation is a compliment sandwich. A compliment sandwich also used to be called the manager sandwich, where you start out with a compliment, then you address the issue, and then you end it with a compliment. Here's an example of that. John, you're really doing great work for us. I really do appreciate you, but I would like to see you get to work on time, because, you know, punctuality is one of our core values. So again, I really appreciate you and the great work that you're doing, but, you know, let's get to work on time, okay? That works extremely well, because you are taking a tough subject and you are putting it in the context of compliments and goodwill. I took that compliment sandwich process and expanded it into creating the Awakened CEO communication process. The first step in this process is for you, the person who is going to engage in this process, to get your mind squared away, to make a choice to have a very positive mindset about the results of the conversation. Once you believe that there can be a positive outcome, that the conversation can go extremely well or will go extremely well, then and only then do you jump into this 5-step process. First step is the opening goodwill and an invitation to collaborate. So we say something like, you know, hey, John, you know, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. Are you open to having a conversation about that? And when they say that they are open to have a conversation about that, and if they're not open to it, or you sense that now is not the right time, then don't do it. But if they're open to it, then you introduce the issue, and then you do a discussion and an exploration of the issue and an exploration of the solution, much like we did in the conflict resolution framework. And then we agree to what the resolution is to this issue and what the next steps are going to be and any commitments that the parties may have. And then you have closing goodwill. Just that simple, 5-step process. Opening goodwill, introduce the issue, discuss the issue and discuss possible resolutions, agree on what the next steps are going to be, and make a commitment to doing the things that you agreed to do, and then offer some closing goodwill. And that works extremely well. So those are the 5 different types of personal conversations that you can have in a structured conversation. The couples dialogue, the UCR-UCD method, the TCD method, compassionate communications, a compliment sandwich, and the Awakened CEO communications process. I want to finish up here by talking about sales conversations. I want to talk about 4 different types of sales conversations, which is another form of structured conversation. We'll talk about the hot customer process, the classic sales process, free sessions that sell, and collaborative closing. First of all, the hot customer process. The hot customer process you use whenever you have a hot customer, somebody who calls you up and says, I'm really pissed off about this. This really troubles me like crazy. You know, the product you provided, the service you provided is a bunch of crap. I want my money back. You really want to go into a step-by-step process to help understand what the issue is, resolve the issue if you can, and give them a chance to express. Step 1 in the process is to let them vent. You know, let them vent by encouraging them to vent. Say, man, I am really sorry about that, which is kind of step 2 in the process, to make an empathetic or apologetic response. And steps 1 and step 2 are repeated in an iterative fashion until they've had a chance to vent all that they're going to vent, to allow them to have you know, a chance to express, to allow them the chance to be heard. Because a lot of times when people are threatened, whenever they're very frustrated, part of that comes from a fear of being treated unfairly and a fear of being abused or even punished. And if you let them vent, then if you give them the respect and kindness that they are looking for, that fear diminishes and their hot buttons diminish as well. But it's key for you to give them the respect and the kindness and a sense of fairness that they are really, really looking for, so they won't feel as threatened and unappreciated and accepted and unsupported as they do when they start the conversation. Once they have vented all that they're going to vent, and once that you are sure that they have heard your empathetic and apologetic response, then you can begin the active problem solving, and then you can set their expectations appropriately about what the next steps are, and then you can thank them and wish them well. if you'll follow this step-by-step process, you have the opportunity to turn these angry customers into lifelong customers, because they know that with you, all of a sudden they feel safe, because they know that if they have an issue, that they're going to be respected, that they're going to be taken care of, and they're going to be supported in the way they want to be supported. And that's worth a lot to them. That's called vendor equity, and it really does mean a tremendous amount to them. So I encourage you to have your own hot customer process, to know it, to practice it, and to use it whenever the time comes, which I hope is not too often. If you study sales at all, you'll understand that almost every sales trainer has a classic sales process. And here is a classic sales process for having a structured sales-related conversation. The first step is we establish trust and rapport. Then we identify an opportunity. Then we qualify the opportunity. Then we develop the opportunity. Then we present the solution. And then we close the deal. That's the classic 6-step sales process. It will vary. The steps in that process will vary from sales trainer to sales trainer. But if you're the CEO of your company, if you have any way responsible for sales or participate in a sales process, it is essential to the health of your business that you have a sales process that you are very, very comfortable with, and things that you're going to say at each step in the process, which allows you to have a kind of structured conversation with your prospect and with your customer. Really, really will help your sales results. Here's 2 more types of sales processes that I've recently become acquainted with that I really like a lot. First one is Free Sessions That Sell from Christian Michelson. I got this off the internet. I know it's his intellectual property, so I want to honor him for that. But you can look up free sessions for sale and you can find the same information that I did on the internet. First step is that you make a connection, which is the same as establishing trust and rapport. Then in his mind, you stimulate their desires by really asking them pointed questions about, what they would like to have. If you could wave a magic wand, and over the course of the next, few years, create the business that you really wanted to have the success that you really wanted to have, what would that look like for you? And then you get them to, then you take very specific steps to increase their emotional connection to those desires, and then uncover blocks and barriers that they see right now, things that are standing in their way of achieving what they really want to achieve. And then in his particular process, you even take some steps to increase their emotional connection to the pain, so that when you can turn that around, they really feel a tremendous sense of relief. Either relief because you help them right then, right now, in that free session that sells, or relief because they really anticipate that you're going to be able to help them in the context of your arrangement. Then you make an offer to them. And this is the 7-step process that Christian Michelson recommends in his very, very cool process called Free Sessions That Sell. By the way, this turnaround can be an actual turnaround where you're taking one of the issues that they have and solving that and helping them, and then inviting them to work with you to address all of the other stuff that they know is on their plate today, and any other things that come up, over time that can work extremely well for closing the deals if you are a consultant, a therapist, a coach of some kind. I really find this to be successful. The collaborative close, by the way, is my favorite one. And this comes from Frank Kern. Again, you start by establishing trust and rapport. You frame the conversation by letting them know that, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you that really works extremely well. So if some of my questions sound a little bit unusual to you, know that the purpose of this is to make sure that we're communicating well and that we know exactly how we might be able to work together, for you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve in life. Then you elicit the desired outcome about what they really want to accomplish in the context of a long agreement with you. We confirm the outcome, we elicit the values and establish an emotional connection to those values. We determine what the current status is, and then I love this, is to ask questions to work with your client to develop the solution that they already agree on. You say, what if we did this together? And listen for their feedback. If they say, yeah, I think that would be great, I think we could do that together, you can say, then what if we did this together? If they say, no, I don't see the value in that, it's not part of the solution that you offer. You work with them to develop the solution that they really want to have in order for them to achieve what they want to achieve. Your responsibility is to collaborate with them, to discover from them, to pull out from them the solution that they want to their problem. And it's your responsibility to pull it out and then summarize it and deliver the solution to affirm success and reach an agreement on how you're going to work together. I love those processes. So here's 4 very, very good sales processes. You may ask why I consider the hot customer process to be a sales process, and that is because you can use that to turn a current customer into a future long-term customer. So in effect, it is a sales process, and if you don't have a process like that, it can really damage a lot of sales out there, because having one customer who feels like they were unappreciated, unheard, abused, punished in any sort of way really can spread bad news about your business. As they say, you know, one aw shit takes the place of 250 attaboys. So, you know, you've got to avoid those as much as you possibly can. And the other 3 are really great sales conversations. So here's the bottom line. The bottom line that there are many different forms of structured conversations, from formal facilitated conversations that happen with a consultant or with some member of the legal establishment, all the way to personal conversations that you can have with your spouse or significant other or children, and sales conversations that you can have with prospects and clients. There is always a way. There is always a way for you to communicate if the other party is willing. You know, many of those conversations, many of those processes that we talk about can only be used with the consent of the other party, such as the facilitated conversations, the legal proceedings, the couples dialogue, and some of the others. But many of them you can use without the permission of the other party, and even without the knowledge of the other party. They don't even have to know that you're using a structured conversation or consent to that structured conversation at all. You can just use it for your benefit, to make sure that you're heard, to make sure that you're communicating in the way that you want to communicate. And of course, if you use this, it will, in essence, invite them to have the same sort of structure to their conversation too. I really believe that you can dramatically improve your communications and your relationships and your business results by becoming very familiar with these. That's been our agenda for today. We talked about why have structured conversations. We offered some examples for formal facilitated conversations and personal conversations and sales conversations, and we summed it all up for the bottom line. So here's what I want you to do as your homework and your exercises. Learn the UCD, the TCD systems, and the Awaken Conversation systems, and practice them with a friend or a coach. Those are things that you can implement right now today without the agreement with anybody else. Nobody else has to go through the training with you. But I find that if you start saying that, you know, I'm uncomfortable about this and I'm concerned about this, so, you know, could I get your support on this? You will find that other people naturally start to gravitate to using that structure because they will see how well it works. So you can use these without training anybody on anything, and it can become a part of your company culture, and you can have improved communications as a result of that. And I encourage you to use third-party facilitators, mediators, coaches, therapists, conflict resolution experts whenever necessary and whenever there is a lot on the line. Whenever there is a lot on the line, an agreement, for example, that's in question for $5,000 or $10,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or you have a pending legal issue with somebody, or your relationship with your spouse is on the line, use a therapist, use a coach, use a trained facilitator to teach you new ways of communicating with each other and to formalize those methods so that you can have better communications and reach the agreement and reach the resolution that everybody wants. There are several different related office hours that I invite you to take a look at. Improving your sales results, number 43 and 83 on sales scripts, and 108 on sales are all about sales. And every time we talk about sales, we talk about a sales process, and we talk about having structured sales conversations. And office hours number 109 is on how to be great at customer service, which will give you a lot more information on that hot customer process that we talked about earlier in today's conversation. We're going to have open Q&A and coaching in just a minute, where we invite you to offer comments and questions on the topic of the day, and then any other issues that you want to talk about. Tell us what your biggest insights were and your takeaways are from today's presentation, and tell us what you're going to focus on. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, we are proud of the support services that we offer to our clients and colleagues out there. We offer them on 3 different levels. On one level, we'll teach you how to do it for yourself, like we do with these office hours presentations and our other information products. In many, many cases, we do it with you, like the strategic planning workshops that we talked about in today's conversation. But we also have a collaborative approach to developing financial models, to developing business plans, to developing sales scripts, to doing all kinds of things to help you create what you needed to create in your business so that you can move forward with confidence, with the right methods, with the right mindset, and with the right momentum in your business. And in some cases, we do it for you. For example, for that is that we're currently CFOs of several different businesses. So if you find that you need a trusted CFO and bookkeeping facility, you can engage our services for that. And in essence, you kind of throw it over the wall to us, and we do the work for you, then come back and present you with results, which we do on other types of engagements as well. Our next office hours will be next Monday on April the 25th. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but you can let me know what topics you'd like for us to address by going to paulsurvey.com. And in between now and the time that we meet again next Monday, do your homework. With that, let's open it up for comments and questions for the day. Stephanie, do we have any comments and questions on today's subjects?
Yeah, we do.
Awesome.
Got something from somebody that's on the call right now.
Okay.
The debate in high school was a solid foundation for resolution in sales. What is another avenue available to learn those skills?
Yeah.
One avenue might be Marshall Rosenberg,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rosenberg. I think you nailed it. I kind of mentioned this earlier. I think that either taking a speech class or a theater class is really, really important as well, because that invites people to get out of their shells. And in the case of theater and in the case of speech, you're learning to deliver a passionate and believable conversation or communication, even though it is memorized. And that's really important too. So, we talk about memorizing sales scripts a lot. It's important for you, whatever you do, to be able to deliver it with passion and to deliver it with flexibility. And those 3 things, taking debate class, taking speech class, taking theater classes, allow you the opportunity to do that. So there are some facilities, of course, if you're 50 years old or 35 years old, you can't go back to high school and take debate class or speech class or theater class, but you can participate in the community theater. You can take sales training. You can grab a friend and practice different techniques with them to support you on this stage of your journey. So there's always a way to do it if you have the will to do it. And I believe that if you look up any one of these things online, the Imago Dialogue, which is also called the Couples Dialogue by Harville Hendricks, if you look up, Nonviolent Communications or Compassionate Communications by Marshall Rosenberg, if you look up the Collaborative Close by Frank Kern, if you look up the 3 Sessions That Sell by Christian Michelson, that you will be able to find a lot of examples of structured conversations, sales conversations, conflict resolution conversations, couples, relationship conversations that really will help you out. So the big key is the mindset. The big key is the mindset is saying, hey, realizing, number one, that relationships are really, really important, that communications are really, really important, and you can become really, really good at it. You can become a master at communicating even the most difficult ideas and topics to anybody that you want if you master these forms of structured conversations. So thank you for that comment. I really do appreciate it, Michael. I know that you're in sales, and I'm sure that the debate classes that you took in high school really did help you out in your sales game later on in life. So thanks for that comment. Stephanie, do we have any other comments or questions?
Yep. How do I get my partner to agree to a couples dialogue or other structured conversation?
You know, that's a tough one. You know, you certainly, it's not that type of thing where I think demanding really works very well. I'm not a very demanding person. I'm more of a nurturing kind of, hey, let's talk this thing through. You know, let's have a gentle kind of relationship person. Um, so I'm not sure that demanding that somebody else go to therapy with you, you know, works that well. Although I have seen people do that. I've seen people, it didn't work very well for me, but it might, you know, again, it might not work for you, or it might be the perfect thing for you. I have seen couples say that, you know, we're going to, if you don't, you know, I'm going to ask for a divorce. I'm going to ask for a separation. We're going to divorce ourselves in business. You know, I'm going to demand that we enter the buy-sell portion of our agreement with each other unless we work through this in some way. And when something's a lot on the line, like I said earlier, that's when you want to go use a coach or a therapist or a trained mediator or a trained conflict resolution expert or a clinical psychologist in order to work through the issues that you need to work through. But it is a tough thing because people come so attached to their point of view and their ideas about what's right and what's wrong and what's fair and what's negotiable and what's not negotiable. You know, all of their safety is built around their attachment to their story and to their ideas of what's right and what's wrong and to their process. To invite them to be flexible in some way is tough to do. In some cases, your show of flexibility might inspire them to give a show of flexibility. In other cases, your flexibility might just encourage them to be more domineering, and that can be really tough. So my recommendation to you is if your partner is not in a position to agree to have that sort of facilitated conversation, is that you need to have that kind of conversation with a trained therapist, a trained clinical psychologist, a trained social worker, a trained marriage and family therapist. And if your spouse or partner won't go with you, then you go by yourself and get their advice on how to invite that other person into that conversation. And you know, my hat's off to you, my heart's with you, because it can be really, really, really tough to get somebody to talk about the things that they don't want to talk about, to a degree to be flexible when they don't want to be flexible at all, when their definition of, you know, of safety involves, you know, their particular attitude and their decisions, you know, being accepted unilaterally. It can be very tough to do that. So if you can't get them to do it on your own, then get the advice and counsel of a trained therapist to help you do that. Hopefully that helps you, and I hope you'll get the support that you need. Next question or comment, Stephanie.
What nuggets can you give those of us who have a tendency to be the one that holds on to their own ideas? Good one.
That is a good one. Recognize that your collaboration is incredibly valuable. One of the things that I discovered some time back that it really meant a lot to me, and it sounds silly when I say it, I know it, but it's simply this, that God doesn't give all the great ideas to just one person. God doesn't give all the great ideas to me, that he gave some of them to you. And he gave some of them to Stephanie, and he gave some of them to Michael, and he gave some of them to John, and he gave some of them to Pete. You know, as it turns out, that everybody gets good ideas from time to time. And the only way that we discover the good ideas that other people have is in a willingness to listen to them and give them the respect that they need and deserve, and to fairly consider their point of view and their ideas. And, you know, if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 people tugging on a rope, you're going to beat the one person on the other end every time. Sometimes it takes teamwork to get the job done. And the way that we have teamwork is that we collaborate, that we cooperate, that we communicate with each other. That word co is really, really important. It comes from Latin that means together. You know, you have to be able to work together in order to harness the power of the team. You know, 6 horses pulling a wagon are going to do a heck of a lot better than 1 horse pulling a wagon, but you got to agree on which direction the wagon's going to go. In that case, there is a conductor. There's the stagecoach driver who tells the horses which way to go. But if you don't have one of those, if it's, we're a team and we have to reach some sort of consensus, again, that word co at the front of that word, we have to be able to communicate, we have to be able to collaborate, we have to be able to negotiate, we have to be able to resolve our disagreements and reach a new agreement to work forward together going forward. It's really, really important that you do that. If you're the one that holds on, I just invite you to look up the law of protection. If you look up the law of protection online, you'll see that it says something like this. No matter how illogical, ineffective, or ineffective somebody's attitudes and actions are, just remember that they're trying to protect themselves. If you're holding on to your ideas, it's you that are trying to protect yourself. Take a big breath, be a little bit flexible, be open in some way, be courageous in some way, and invite the other person to collaborate and let go of those hard ideas. Let go of those really, really firm ideas that you have. Or move on and find somebody else who agrees with you in the way that you cannot negotiate. Just a word about that, by the way. There are some convictions that people have, and a conviction, by my definition of that term, means an unassailable belief or attitude that somebody is not going to let go of no matter what. I have some of those. You may have some of those, and the people that you are talking to may have some of those. You can reach that point to where that's somebody's opinion, that's somebody's conviction, and they're not going to let go of it no matter what. And then it may take a third-party facilitator to assist in that conversation, or you may end up agreeing not to agree in some way and finding a way to move forward either together or separately. Hopefully that helped. Stephanie, next question.
All righty. Couple of comments. Bravo, very usable. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind words.
Another question, where do I find a good mediator?
I think if you'll just look up, the power of search engines today is so incredible. If you just typed in mediator space city name, wherever your city is, my guess is that you're going to come up with several people who are trained mediators. Or you can ask your attorneys. So attorneys are used to the process of mediation. It is a kind of a legal process. It's outside the court system, but it is a legal process. And so there are trained mediators that are, that have been trained. Some of them have been around for a long time. A business partner of mine just recently, a few weeks ago, went into a mediation process, and they did not reach settlement at the end of it, but they did take steps in the right direction. So you can look it up online or ask an attorney. You can ask people of your Chamber of Commerce. By the way, Chambers of Commerce are one of my favorite places to go to ask people for their advice on who might be able to support you in any way that you want to be supported. So you can pick up the phone and call the local Chamber of Commerce, especially if you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and ask their opinion on if they know any other members of the Chamber of Commerce who are trained mediators, and they'll be able to help you. And by the way, we do have people in our network who are trained mediators and facilitators, not the least of which is Stuart Levine, who wrote the book on getting the resolution, and another one of our business partners, Bill Steerley is his name, is a trained mediator as well, and a trained facilitator of Marshall Rosenberg's compassionate communication process. So we have experts in our community and in our network who can help you out with that mediation process if you have any issues in finding a conflict resolution expert or a trained mediator to assist in your opportunities for communication. Just give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. Next question or comment.
Okay. Next question. What is the difference between mediation and arbitration?
Good question. I talked about that a little bit. And I talked about mediation as being outside the court system. Arbitration is actually inside the court system. Arbitration is when you agree to let a judge, decide the case for you. That instead of having a trial by jury, mediation is in essence a trial by judge. They use a lot of the same mediation process in terms of each party getting an opportunity to present their case and trying to reach some sort of an agreement. But in this case, the arbitrator, the judge in the process, is not looking for you to reach a settlement. They are going to tell you what the decision is, and it is binding in the court of law. So if you and I have a disagreement on, I think you owe me $10,000 and you don't think you do, but we agree to arbitration, that means we agree to employing the services of a judge who will render a verdict in the trial, so to speak, in the arbitration process, which we are both legally bound to whenever he or she gives that decision. So that's different from mediation. Mediation is using a mediator to try to get the parties to reach a settlement, which may or may not happen. But arbitration, there is always a verdict, and both parties in that arbitration process are legally bound to that verdict in the same way they would be in a trial by jury in a court of law. So it's a much different process, and there are a lot of rules about the Arbitration Association, and you'll see many contracts out there where they agree to arbitration as opposed to agreeing to trial by jury, because trial by jury is so much more expensive than an arbitration process is. Arbitration is something you can do in weeks for thousands of dollars, or maybe $10,000, but thousands of dollars, as opposed to trial by jury, which happens, in 6 to 12 months, and the cost is tens of thousands of dollars. So you'll see arbitration clauses in a lot of different contracts, and we have them in our contracts too. Although I've been blessed to never go to mediation and never go to arbitration with any of my clients. Almost did once because I was not clear on my contract, and I take responsibility for that, although, it was settled in a way that was most advantageous to me. In fact, it was settled in a way that was the utmost advantageous to me. In other words, the other party dropped their suit, or dropped their case against us because they felt like they'd been wronged when they really weren't in my position, and of course that was backed up. So I haven't had experience with mediation or arbitration. I did participate in the mediation process once for a lawsuit for one of my kids that was involved in a car accident, and we end up settling in that process too. So I have that sort of experience with it. Hopefully that was helpful to you in the difference in between arbitration and mediation. They are quite different. One's a legal proceeding. One is an attempt at reaching an agreement or a settlement before legal proceedings begin. And we've got right 1:01 p.m., so we got time for one more question if you have any more. If you got one more question for us, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been looking forward to this one.
Okay.
I really don't like salespeople who use a script. I feel like I'm being manipulated. Do I have to use one?
No, you don't have to use a sales script. That's the bottom line. You don't have to use a sales script at all. But we encourage you to do that. But we encourage you to do it in a way that's not manipulative, and that people really, can't even tell that you're using a script, because what you're saying comes from the heart, and you really do mean it, and you really are genuinely delivering it with kindness and respect and even joyfulness. Let me give you an example of that. I use a particular line when it comes to asking for agreement with my clients. And the line that I really love to use is to say something like, John, I think this process is really going to be great for you, and I would really appreciate the opportunity to move forward and work with you. How do you feel about moving forward? That's a script. I say almost the same thing every time when I'm asking for the order, but I've learned how to deliver that, in a very truthful and compassionate way, in a joyful way, in a meaningful way, in an honest way, in an authentic way, and it works for me. I really do figure out, the other party feels very warmly invited to share their ideas on moving forward or not moving forward, whichever way that they choose. That's a perfect example of a part of a sales process that is scripted in a way that really facilitates the reaching of an agreement or not. Another thing is, if somebody says, hey, what do you do? I say, I'm a high-level business coach, and I'm a high-level business consultant and personal coach. I work with CEOs and entrepreneurs to help them develop and implement their growth plans so they can get the success that they want in business. And I also work with them to help them be the person that they want to be. Does that sound of interest to you? You know, that's a script, and I wasn't delivered purely from a script, but it was a bit of a scripted conversation. So my encouragement to you is that scripts are nothing more than ways of communicating with somebody else in a way that's proven to be really beneficial and really, really effective. We just discover the dialogue or create the dialogue that works really well for us, and then we memorize it and we use it over and over and over and over again because it facilitates the conversation, because it facilitates reaching an agreement with somebody in a way that's really going to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And I think that's a key part here, is if your mindset about sales is really about seeing if I can help somebody else be the person that they want to be, live life in the way that they want to live it, achieve what they want to achieve in business, then that's what I am here for. And I'm going to use whatever techniques I find over time to see if I have the possibility of doing that again, because I just love to do that. And I just love to do that, as you can tell. I love to work with clients and prospects. I love to help people just like you build the business that they want to build and become the person that they want to be. And that's what the Awakened CEO system is all about, what I'm all about, what Stephanie's all about, what our company is all about. We'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you about ways that we can help you achieve the business of your dreams and ways in which we can help you become the person that you want to be so you can live life in the way that you want to live it and experience a joyful, powerful life in the way that you want to experience it. And with that, we'll say goodbye for today's office hours. Invite you to see us again next week, same time, same bat channel. Until we meet again, this is Paul Hoyt and Stephanie May saying, wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.